Greetings, Unhidden Voices family, and welcome to episode 15. This episode is going to begin with me just acknowledging the collective sorrow that we have and the despair that we have that Breonna Taylor's murderers were not, no charges were brought against them for her murder. In fact, her white neighbors' charges were brought because against a police officer who shot into their home when no damage, that none of them lost their lives, but Breonna lost her life, and no murder charges for the police officers. And here we sit with this heavy heart and recognition that our lives in this country are of no consequence, not to us, like obviously we recognize our value, but how do you rationalize this idea that a woman could be asleep in her bed and murdered, and then the officers who kill her while she's sleeping get off for self-defense? That makes absolutely no sense. Only in a racist, anti-black hating country does it make sense, but other than that, it makes no sense. So as a result of this and needing needing to do something, there's a couple of things that we've done. One is that we've started a newsletter. We launched it. It is called Ain't I a Woman, in honor of Sojourner Truth, who asked that question in 1851, acknowledging that black women are not considered women and we are not considered of value. And to that point, we also acknowledge our brown sisters who are in Georgia, who were in Georgia, who were detained in Georgia, who were forced to have hysterectomies, and also our incarcerated women who it is still legal to forcibly remove their uteruses in this country. And as you may be aware, our incarcerated brothers and sisters are considered slaves in this country because of the 13th Amendment. So we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. And because we have so much work to do, I thought it was important to begin this session. And I know that initially I said that we were going to just dedicate the next couple episodes to the Crowdies. But we're going to take a pause and just reflect and have, I'm calling it a master class because it's really an opportunity for, I learned a lot, you will learn a lot from my brother. My brother's name is Sundiata Rashid. He is my younger brother. He's almost 2 years younger than me, not quite. He's bigger than me, so I call him my big little bro or my little big bro, depending on depending on the day. His memory is phenomenal. We actually, our father married a white woman, and we had a two stepbrothers that were white, Henry and Adam. And so we talk about Adam because he actually died in police custody. And so you'll learn a lot. My brother Sundiata talks about what it means to be African American, what it means to be Muslim, what it means to be black in this country and in all countries, and our collective struggle and our collective journey. So please subscribe to our newsletter. You can go to unhiddenvoices.org to subscribe. Please also, if you like this episode, subscribe to our podcast. We appreciate all of your support, and we will continue to do the work. So listen, learn, and amplify with us.
That's right.
Because she was white, she was able to get her license at 16 or whatever, and no problem.
No
If
big
she'd
deal.
have been black, she'd have been getting all these tickets, going to jail, having to bail out, paying all these fees. The whole system is just built up on making sure black people, the ones who got the least, is paying the most. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was telling you, I think that
I was when Adam came to stay with us the last time, he had his pregnant girlfriend, and I do not remember him being a part of the Aryan Nation at all. Like I did not. Maybe I mean now that you're saying that, I'm like, oh, that's very shocking to me. But anyway, and his girlfriend was really sweet. Like we were friends. We were both pregnant at the same time. I was pregnant with Leilani, and she was pregnant with Adam's child, and we both went to to welfare office to try and get a Medicare, AFDC, and we go in at the same time, and we come out. And I didn't get anything. They were like, "We're sorry, you don't qualify to whatever." And she was like, she actually had food stamps in her hand, like hundreds of dollars worth of food stamps. She had like money, like the check was in the mail. And I was just like, how? She was like this little blonde hair, blue-eyed white girl. She's like 17. And she wasn't even she was going to put her child up for adoption, right? Because I think Adam wasn't sure that he was just, messing with her head, I guess, a bit about, whether or not they was even together. But the daggone Pennsylvania,
No, so I was telling my kids this too. Like that summer was the summer before I went to college, and me and him was trying to get jobs. You know what I'm saying? And he high school dropout with all these tattoos and stuff.
And he had put the weed on top of Taz's roof.
Put the weed on top of the roof, and the weed grew over, and then the fire department came. And you know what I'm saying? But it's like, it was like we drive up to New York. He buy all this weed, and that was back in the days when the weed would have all them little seeds in it. Planting the seeds, man, and the stuff ended up growing. He put pots all over the house, and on the roof he put some pots, and then this freak storm came through months later, and then they end up growing up over the roof. You can see them, and so we shared a wall with the DA's office, so that the paper thought that some kids put on the DA's roof as a prank. But it was actually Adam. But he would keep getting all these callbacks for jobs, and here I am I'm college. You know what I'm saying? He was getting all these callbacks, and I ain't getting nothing, man. And it was like, and I remember a couple of times he was like, "Yeah, man, but my brother here," and they was like, "Oh, what's your brother's name?" He was like, "Sundiata," and he said they was like, he was like, "Oh, they said they gonna call you back when they look up your application." And he never called me back. But I mean, it's just, that was just an insight into like what people say.
Yeah.
Like people say, "Oh yeah, man, white folks get all of these privileges," and then some black people push back and say, "That's not true. If you work hard enough." But the reality is, it's not about.
Yeah.
It is. If I worked hard enough, I'm pretty sure I could have got a job in Pennsylvania. The difference is Adam didn't have to work at all, and that's privilege.
Yeah.
If you worked hard enough, if you filed appeals and everything, you probably could have got on the welfare system. Difference is, oh girl, and not to say nothing, I love that girl like that. I had a lot of love for her and Adam. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It broke my heart when Adam died.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But the reality is certain things that they don't have to work for.
That was one of the only times actually that I've seen you just, really grieving somebody. And that's another reason why I said I feel like you two were very close, even despite that's why when you're talking about him being part of the Aryan Nation and stuff like that, that is so.
I mean, I'm like that because when I was in the military, it was dudes in the military that was Klan members. People used to be like, "Dude, how is it that you could work with this dude?" Know what I'm saying? And he you know how he feel. And I was like, "Dude, he ain't the only person that feel like that."
Yeah.
But he gonna be straight up with you. Now, so like Adam's thing was, by the time he got to where we was at, he wasn't like we would be talking, and I'll be introducing the KRS-One, and you know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? So it was definitely edification on both our sides. I was finding out that all of these dudes got black stepdaddies. And he was finding out about the movement, know what I'm saying? But by the same token, like living with him and working with him gave me the ability later on in life to actually work with people. Not to like, not to be like no sellout or stuff, but be like, yeah, I can work with people if we got the same kind of goals. Like in the military, you got certain things that you had to meet. This dude, know what I'm saying? And in the end, you know, I ain't gonna show him no favoritism, but I'm gonna be able to work with him because I know in the end he is just ignorance. You know what I'm saying? And it's, you know, it's a lot of society. Like as Muslims, people are always, you know, sometimes we could become prudish a lot of times and be very selective about who we discriminate against. Like it's all jahiliyyah and sinfulness in all kind of brands of America. But it's only when that jahiliyyah and sinfulness is dark, the Muslims start to criticize. Like Black Lives Matter is the LGBT coalition or whatever. They ain't gonna say that same thing about anything else. The Muslim ban and who we working with. Know what I'm saying? It's like it's only when it's with black folks. Then all of a sudden, and black folks as a people, we get caught up into it too. We be like, oh yeah, this and this and the LGBT this and the this and the that. And my whole thing is be like, dude, you just gotta use your common sense, man. Like if you see
who's working to support you and who's your enemy,
who's actually actively coming with a rifle and shooting people dead in the street, and them is the ones because they claim that they Christian. Them is the ones that foolish Muslims be like, well, they closer to us in doctrine, and I'm like, no, they not.
No, they're not.
Them is the Klan
Christians. People that sat up here and
they the Klan Christians. They ain't never had no love for humanity that Jesus Christ used to talk about. Even in their version of what Jesus Christ was about, they ain't about that. Know what I'm saying? So just miss me with that. And then people be like, well, you know, I mean, it's just a strange world that we living in. But I definitely got enough sense to know that it ain't never gonna be no time unless somebody repents, like I feel like Adam did, that they ever gonna actually be able to work for, you know, Muslims.
Right.
Like what good would it be for Muslims to make a coalition with some hate mongering Christians? Like, so okay, what good is that gonna do? So now they don't hate you, but they still hate blacks and know what I'm saying, women and no sense. Like what they don't lie, they hate immigrants. You immigrant. If you black, I mean unless you black.
You know, the thing is that really is despicable to me is these people who are so tribalistic in that they're just like, okay, well, you know, they're banning like if you're Latinx or Latino and you're like, well, he's only talking about Mexicans are rapists, so I'm going to vote for him. You know what I mean? It's just like, it makes no sense to me.
I mean, you know, it's so I feel like there's been this thing in America where Americans have always had a need to like follow these like charismatic strong men, right? Mm-hmm. They looking for a savior, you know what I'm saying? And so there's different elements in different religions. And so if you focus on these apocalyptic prophecies about the end of time, and that becomes everything you focus on, whether you Muslim, whether you Christian, whether you a Hindu, whether you're a Rasta, you always thinking it's the end of the days, it's the end of days. People be telling me, and in 2020, you know, 2020 been crazy, right? But I tell people all the time, like, I've been hearing it's the end of days since the 70s and the 80s. Know what I'm saying? So like, imagine if people in 1970 and 1980 instead of focusing on the future, just was living their life like it was 1999, right?
Yeah.
You would have the exact thing that you have in the Black community, right? Because as Black people, we had all these apocalyptic outlooks on life. Like we waiting for somebody to save us instead of doing our personal obligations. You know what I'm saying? We ain't doing it, let alone our communal obligations, right? So that stuff falling to the wayside, and we just get behind these demagogue type preachers, you know what I'm saying? And so they describe Blacks in America as the canary in a coal mine.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Everything that we suffer from goes on to the greater community and society. So just like at one point, we was the only ones, like you listen to these QAnon theories, they very akin to like teachings of the Nation of Islam and teachings of the like the Hebrew Israelites. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we was the only ones being affected by it and listening to it, but now it done reached the greater society. They done changed the name, but it's still the same stuff. All the deep state is the Illuminati. You know what I'm saying? So because people, they've had that need for that kind of like charismatic leadership, they'll go with Trump. Because of whatever you want to say about Trump, he charismatic.
Yeah.
He gonna make you laugh. And when he be talking about Joe Biden, like Joe Biden is anti-charismatic. But like it's the same with Obama was super charismatic too. Like actually sit and listen to them guys and be entertained by their talk, which is not what happens with a lot of politicians. It's just gonna be boring, you know what I'm saying?
But one of the things too, I think, particularly for the Black community, is that there's so much, like it is rooted in, just a mistrust, but that mistrust is rooted in factual, you know what I mean? Like the fact of the matter is that, we were experimented on, or they did, have COINTELPRO, and they did, you know what I'm saying? These things did actually happen historically to us, but then it makes it, but to hear it come from, white people saying it, and then a lot of it is just, I can't.
Well, I mean, so I think it's two things happening. One, definitely the Democratic Party ain't really been a friend of Black folks. You know what I'm saying? True. So like, that's true. You know what I'm saying? But the only people who've been less a friend of Black folks in this only coalition, less friendly to Black people in the history of America than the Democrats are the Republicans. So for you to say, I'm so sick of the Democrats, I'm gonna throw my hands up and join the Republican Party, that's like that's self-defeating, right? Like you're not serving your own interests by joining a group of people who are outwardly racist, like the Republicans in our lifetime. Like you could talk about, Abraham Lincoln or something, but in our lifetime, the Republicans made a decision to pick up all of the racist Democrats that got left behind by Lyndon Johnson. They said, we're going to reach out to these people. That's going to be the only way we could win. And that's how Nixon got elected, by reaching out to all these white Southerners, right? Yeah. And so that's the backbone of the Republican Party now, and these Southern white racists, you know what I'm saying? So, and that's definitely who Trump reaches out to. That's right. That's the people who come out.
He's courting them for sure. And even like when I think about like I feel like the other problem when you're talking about, the Muslim community of supporting Trump or even Republicanism is if you think about like the whole war on terror and the like the actual torture that happened of like
the war on terror and all of that stuff is the reason why the majority of Muslims now are Democrats, right? But like we have to have honest conversations with the Muslims and like we're at an intersection between African Americans and Muslims, right? So there are African Americans that we have relationships with who aren't Muslim. There are African Americans who we have relationships with who are Muslims. Yeah. And there are Muslims who we have relationships with who aren't African American. So it's an intersection that
Yeah.
we stand in as the convert community. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But we have to be honest, like, okay, we can work with each other where our goals where it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? But what's been happening for us as the convert community is that the only things the Muslims highlight has been goals that work for them that don't necessarily work or
For
don't even,
us.
like the Muslim ban. If you black and you Muslim, yeah, some of the people who you know might not be able to come to America, whatever, but you don't even know them because they from Sudan or something,
Yeah.
right? So we definitely can say that's a problem. That's something that we think that shouldn't go. But does that have to be the focus for the black community? Like for black Muslims, is all of our khutbahs gonna be about the Muslim ban? Is all of our khutbahs gonna be about Islamophobia? Like, as a black person, when I get pulled over by the cops, I'm
They
not thinking about my Muslimness. I'm not thinking about my Muslimness.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my Muslimness because I'm saying Allahumma salli ala Muhammad so I could get through this traffic stop. But I'm like, this dude gonna be tripping because I'm black. You know what I'm saying? And so, but for the Muslim community, when they come to us, they only want us to highlight the issues
the
that
issues
don't really affect us.
that are
And
like international global issues as
what they
opposed
consider
to,
as Muslim issues. They
right.
don't consider Trayvon Martin as a Muslim issue.
Right.
They don't consider,
The
and
oppression of
that's
black people in the country.
that's the why the work that I'm trying to do is
And
saying no,
support.
this is a Muslim issue, right?
Yeah.
Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in an authentic hadith, he said that Islam will wear out like the embroidery on garments, right? You know how you have a nice garment, even maybe a t-shirt with a name on it. You throw it in a wash enough times, the name starts to wear out, the picture starts to fade. If it has some kind of embroidery, over time it starts to fray and come loose. He says so much so until the embroidery is all the way gone.
Yeah.
Right? And he said that there will be a people who will say, I remember that my parents used to say, there is no God but Allah. He said, these people won't pray and they won't fast, but they'll say, I remember when my parents used to say, there is no God but Allah, right? Now, people think, and this definitely is a sign of the day of judgment, right? But we can see two cases in history where that's happened, at least two. Yeah. One was in Spain. If you go to Spain now, there's no indigenous Spanish Muslim community, right? Those Muslims was expelled. They had to convert. The ones who came to America by the French and the British, they were called Christianized Moors, right? Meaning the Islam wore out. The fact that the Americans called the Moors, the British and the French, man, they still say they Muslims though. They Christianized Muslims, right? Meaning, only thing that's still left is they say, and you talk to black Muslims, and they say, man, you know, my parents, they just believed in one God.
Yeah.
You know, we used to go to the church, but you know, they used to just say, man, it's only one God.
Yeah.
So this is what the Prophet Sallallahu is saying, and it's 1,400 years ago, he's predicting that these types of events will happen, right?
Right.
But the crux of that whole argument or that whole hadith is that one of the people listening to the hadith asked Hudayfa, who was narrating it, said, what good is it going, you know how Muslims be up on the high horse, what good is it going to do that they say their grandparents said la ilaha illallah? What good is that going to do for them? And Hudayfa said 3 times, it will save them from the hellfire it will save them from the hellfire. It will save them from the hellfire, right? Meaning, if you have people who Islam was stripped from systematically, it wasn't like, you know what I'm saying, they just decided to stop practicing. It was like because of world events, things that totally was out of their hand, they was no longer conducive for them to be Muslim. You know what I'm saying? Those people's descendants, according to this hadith, are still Muslim.
Yeah.
So if you know that African Americans and Latinos are descendants from West Africans and Spanish and Portuguese Moors, then regardless of what you think, because they dark and they poor, you got to say because of their heritage, Islam is their birthright. You know what I'm saying? And it's a natural process. Like, you see the amount of Latinos who become Muslim. You see the amount of African Americans who become Muslim.
Yeah.
Like, with nobody coming over here to teach them nothing, know what I'm saying? Right. Nobody setting up schools, just people just hearing Islam and say, oh yeah, that's my religion. Know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's because this is the outcome of this hadith. Not saying somebody be like, well, he's trying to say that the hadith is talking about the last day is talking about what happened to black folks, right? But the Prophet said, before the Dajjal comes, there'll be 40 minor Dajjals, right? There'll be 40 men who say that they are the final messenger of Allah before the Dajjal. Meaning, you see these other 40, they're hallmarks to let you know this is the trend is going. And by the same token, when the Prophet says, like the Prophet said, the day of judgment won't come until the smoke comes. The smoke comes and the people can't breathe, right?
Yeah.
We've seen smoke come.
Yeah.
So now people be like, well, this hadith is talking about a worldwide smoke. Alhamdulillah. But just like there's minor Dajjals in the Dajjal, there can be minor smokes and smokes. Yeah. There can be minor loss of religion and then a total loss of religion. We should see these things happening in history and not say this is the Prophet something
connected and build on each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that you're also getting to is like, which we haven't named, but in Islam, because you talked about, like, you know, one of the reasons why Muslims who are immigrant Muslims to this country should connect with the experiences of Black people is because of our descendants from Muslims, you know, who were former like Muslims who were West African or Portuguese. But in addition to that, what about the fact that as a Muslim, aren't you supposed to connect with the oppressed people, no matter what their descendant, you know what I mean, in the land?
So that's definitely too. Allah in the Holy Quran, He says, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. Kabara maktan indallahi and taqulu ma la taf'alun." Allah says in the Holy Quran, "Oh, you who believe, why is it that you say that which you don't do?" It's a grievous audacity with Allah that you say that which you do not do. Meaning, we say we about justice and truth. We say we about freedom. We say we about these things, these high lofty concepts, but then we come over here and walk all over poor people.
Yeah.
Walk all over people of color. This is what Allah is saying. It's an odious thing. It's a smelly thing with Him that you say something, you say you about something, but that's not what you actually about. So definitely, regardless of the history of the Portuguese Moors and the West Africans, Muslims should still stand up for people who are oppressed. But even more so, when it's in your interest to recognize that Islam was a founding religion of the United States,
Yes.
then it makes no sense. You go against your own interest to just keep the lies going about this country was just a couple of black folks and a bunch of Christians and some Native Americans, when in reality, some of the greatest Muslim thinkers in history was Spanish Moors.
That's right.
So it's like the reality of the Spanish Moors means that if those people's descendants are here, then you understand when you see the Malcolm X's.
Yeah.
Then you understand it's like these people they got a legacy and a history that they've been taken from, but that genetic makeup is still there. Like a person could be taken from Africa, he could still have sickle cell.
That's right.
15 generations later, he could still have sickle cell.
Mm-hmm.
The first person to recognize that the retina is what deciphers light was a Spanish Moor named Averroes, right? Averroes in Western thought is called the father of rational thought. If Averroes was alive today, he'd be considered a black person in America because his genealogy, his history, where he came from, where his people came from, the color of his skin, he wouldn't have been seen as a white person. Know what I'm saying? So those things definitely. Why is it nobody's been talking about? As long as Muslims have been here, how come nobody's never said nothing about the Moors and their history in the United States? And then the last thing I'll say about them is that there was a woman who she sued. She said, there's no reason I can't marry a white person because my people are Portuguese. I'm a descendant of Portuguese Moor. This was in her lawsuit in the 1700s in the United States of America. She said, or in the 1800s, I'm sorry, 1870s, she said she's a descendant of Portuguese Moor. This lawsuit went to the Supreme Court and judges ruled in her favor, but eventually the Supreme Court said anybody with one drop of black blood is a Negro in this country.
Yeah.
So any laws that are for the Negroes, like you can't marry white people in a certain state, they got to go by that law. That was a Supreme Court rule. We all know the one drop black blood rule.
Yeah, we do.
How many of us knew that had to do with Portuguese Moors? Because she was like, I'm not from Africa. I'm European. Now, I might be dark. You know what I'm saying? Darker than most white folks. But my people don't know nothing about Africa. Know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm saying is that's gotta definitely has to be part of the dialogue, part of the conversation. I mean, everybody ain't gonna get with it, but it's like the we could keep hearing the same old khutbahs at the masjids. You know what I'm saying? Like Malcolm X said, if that's all your religion is doing for you, you need to leave it in the closet anyway, right?
Yeah.
We got to start thinking about how the religion is affecting our day-to-day life and not just a khutbah that I could have gave the same. I walked out of the masjid in 1987, halfway through, and came back in 2020 and heard the second half of the same khutbah. Like, that don't make no sense.
That's your question though, because I want to make it, connect it more so that people can also relate to it based on your own experience with it. So, when do you remember the first time you experienced or saw yourself or saw somebody else as a Black person being, mistreated by the police?
I mean, I grew up. I mean, that ain't, if anybody say they ain't never seen nobody Black being mistreated by the police, what did Biden say? Yeah, that person ain't Black. Like, if you ain't seen nobody get mistreated by the police, you ain't Black. No, I'm saying, come on, man. It's
I
really.
was thinking about, okay, do you remember when we got arrested?
I remember that. I don't want to talk about that
I
though.
know you don't, but I'm saying that to me was, I had forgotten about that until the case that happened with the women in Colorado with their heads down. They were surrounded by the cops, and I thought about that because that to me is like the one of those memories that you suppress. But I do think if we don't, I feel like part of it too is like somebody said that you can't really dislike be racist close up to somebody, and so I feel like with
But you
Muslims,
can though.
right? Okay, so
Because all of them white boys whose stepdaddies was black and they joined the Aryan Nation. Like, I feel like we need to stop this narrative because what we doing is we bailing out white people for centuries and
yeah,
centuries of the same behavior, right?
yeah,
So to try to make it seem like it's a lack of education and it's this, that's not true. Like white police that kill, some of them be married to black women
yeah,
and still kill black people. Know what I'm saying? So it's like the one that did the thing, the Admiral Lewima with the stuck the plunger up his, he had a black wife. Know what I'm saying? So it's like that doesn't mean nothing. Like some slave masters slept with slave women and
yeah,
probably slept with slave children and boys and little kids because they just sickos. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? But the thing is, I'm saying all that just to say, regardless of the fact, it ain't just about education. That's why it's you can't. It's like people say you can't just be. I'm not racist. You have to be anti-racist. You
right.
know. And
So
so
that's the thing. So I guess that's the question. Then it's like, what is because part of it is like, and when I was thinking about the education piece, I was still connecting it to the Muslims that you're alluding to, that a lot of them may not even know the history that you just shared about their history and in connection to.
But that's not that it's not their history, it's our history. It's our history. Like if you take your mama and you put a hijab on your mama, everybody gonna think she's from Syria. Know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And that's what it is. It's like African Americans have this history of North African,
yeah,
West African,
yeah,
European, and Native ancestry. And
right.
we are the only people here who have that consistently, right? And so the Islamic part of it, the North and West African part, is the part that we need to highlight for people, regardless of what, like, so, the whole Islamic paradigm and the story of Bilal, like, I don't want to hear that stuff. Like that, all of that stuff that they tell, that stuff is not even the real history. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's what we say to make ourselves feel good, but the reality is the Meccans were more comfortable with black people than in the time of Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yeah,
They were 100% comfortable around black people.
yeah,
Bilal was not the only black person.
yeah,
There is like hundreds of Qurayshi Meccans who had African mothers. Know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
And Umar bin al-Khattab, his grandmother and his great grandmother was from Africa, and he was Umar bin al-Khattab. So
yeah,
this whole story about like there's one story about the Ubada bin Samit that they always tell, and the way they tell it is the way Muslim imams tell this story is the same way they tell a story about Bilal was on the Kaaba, and this is to try to marginalize blackness in the seerah of the prophet, right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Ubadah bin Samit, they go to conquer the was Alexandria in Egypt. And so the Roman governor was named Muqawqis. And when he was supposed to be surrendering and he saw Ubadah bin Samit was the leader, he said, man, bring me somebody else. I don't talk to black people, right? And They was like, what do you mean bring you somebody else? He's our leader. He's the most eloquent and the most courageous amongst us. And besides that, there is no difference amongst us between blacks and whites, right? Now, people try to say, oh, they're saying that because they learned that from the prophet. So Islam taught them there was no difference. And they had to say that because they done told this story about Bilal is inaccurate, right?
Yeah.
So Ubadah bin Samit, when he listened to everything being said, and when he finally spoke up, he said, I heard everything you said. He said, and if my blackness, this is what he said, if my blackness is something you feel uncomfortable with or makes you scared, there's 1,000 people where I'm from that's blacker than me. But you could bring a million people that look like you, and none of them will scare me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is Ubadah bin Samit, right? Now, listen to what he said, because if the Arabs were so racist in the time of the prophet, and they hated Bilal because he was black, was Ubadah bin Samit, where was he from? Ubadah bin Samit was Khazraj from Medina. He was the leader of the Medinan tribe who met with the prophet the first time. And he was black, according to this hadith. Because in the hadith, the first time they come in contact with this Roman governor of Egypt, the Roman governor of Egypt is the first time it is ever mentioned about this guy that he was black. And his response was, where I'm from, Medina, the city of Medina, where I come from, there's 1,000 people blacker than me. 1,000 men blacker than me. If you scared of me, right? So what does that mean? Is that the picture of Medina we see when we see the movie The Messenger? We see 1,000 black people blacker than you see one black person. When you read the story or you see the cartoon Omar bin Allah, or Omar bin Allah's mother was African. But when you see Umar bin al-Khattab, the cartoon, does he look like somebody whose grandparents, grandmother, and great-grandmother was African? From Africa. Umar ibn al-Khattab's dad, Khattab, was 75% African, right? 75%. Now, if you do a DNA test, most black people ain't gonna get past 58% in America. So you saying that this guy, who's Umar's father, was 75% black African, but you gonna tell me that people didn't like Bilal because he was black? Know what I'm saying? And these is the type of way that we tell the stories. And then I just ended that whole thing with this. The Khazraj tribe, where he was from, right? That was where the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's great-grandmother was from, that tribe.
Yeah.
So he's basically saying everybody from my tribe is black. And the Prophet's great-grandmother was from that tribe. What does that mean? The Prophet says something, he said in an authentic hadith, I was sent to the black and to the red. And I am from the black. Right? That hadith gives like respect and love to his grandmother's people.
Yeah.
If you read it in the context of she's from the same tribe as Ubadah bin Samit, and it's the thing. So the Quran as a book, it doesn't talk about color. Yeah. Like when it talks, the only time it mentions anybody's color is Moses. It says when he put his hand in, he brought it back out and it was white, saying obviously he was black, or it wouldn't have been a miracle. Right? But I'm saying in general, it doesn't talk about color. And, you know, for the most part, when we talk about Bilal, because we're reading, you know, white supremacy into it.
Right.
Bilal was black. and that's why he had all these problems.
Yeah.
But in reality, Bilal people tried to conquer Mecca with the elephants.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they could make their move on Mecca, Allah sent the birds, and the birds destroyed the army.
Yeah.
Right? Destroyed the elephants. But all of the survivors of the army, that black Abyssinian army, was brought into Mecca as slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where those, man, when you read all of these black, it wasn't like a trans Red Sea slave trade or something. It was like we got all these slaves because the birds destroyed their elephant. And they was, you know what I'm saying? And they came with their women and children, and we brought them in as slaves.
Yeah.
This happened when? In the year of the prophet's birth. Mm. We read into it, this Hebrew guy, Abraha, right? Abraha was a monotheist. Abraha believed in one God. He was coming to destroy the Kaaba because they was polytheists, and they made shirk. So in the Holy Quran, Allah says over and over again, or the Prophet says in the Hadith, verily the best, or in the Quran it says that Allah created us into tribes and nations. It don't say nothing about he created races.
Yeah.
Whenever Muslims get together and say, let's talk about race in America, the first thing they say is, Allah says in the Holy Quran that he created you to male and female and the tribes and the nations so that you, okay, in that ayat that you reading, where does it say race? Mm-hmm. Because race is not something that was created by Allah. It's a social construct.
That's right.
It's like somebody could be considered black today, and next month, depending on the society he moves to, like a lot of black African Americans, they move to the Middle East, to Yemen. They not considered black in Yemen because of their skin color is lighter. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's like but they considered American because they still Americans when they go. You know what I'm saying? So Abraha, he was a Christian. He was a monotheist. The whole struggle was against shirk and tawheed. And he was a hallmark, like we were saying before, of the coming of the prophet. Yeah. Because he came to end polytheism in Mecca, and he came with this army and 10,000 men, right? But the way he was going about it was wrong, because he was going to make war, destroy the Kaaba, kill innocent people. This is what Allah didn't like. Yeah. Allah didn't have no problem with not the shirk part, getting rid of shirk. so Allah showed you could try to do it this way. And it's in our history today. We get these groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and they're doing their actions the same way that Abraha did it. We just gonna make war and kill people and hope that we could make things right. You ain't make things right by killing folks. You know what I'm saying? And so
go ahead, finish your
let me just finish this, because this is a very important part of this whole story. Okay. So once those slaves come into Mecca, those slaves was conquerors. They conquered the Arabian Peninsula, right? Then because Allah destroyed their army, they became slaves in Mecca, right? Yes. One of these slaves was Abraha's daughter. You know what Abraha's daughter's name is?
No.
Hamama. Hamama was a Christian. Hamama was she was the 8th person to take Shahada, right?
Yes.
And Hamama has a son, and her son is named, you don't know?
Is it Zayd?
Huh?
I was going to say Zayd. No.
Hamama's son is named Bilal.
Bilal. Okay.
So Bilal, who's taught to us, slave, is the grandson of the person who brought 10,000 men and an elephant. And when he came, all of the Meccans abandoned the city.
Wow.
We can't fight this army. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? So why is it that when we hear about Bilal, nobody, we could be Muslim for decades. Nobody gonna say, oh, we hear about Abraha, he's in the Quran. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Have you not heard what happened to the companions of the elephant? This is in the Holy Quran. But we never connect those Africans with Bilal.
Mm-hmm.
But once we do that, we can say they did not like Bilal because he was black. They didn't like Bilal because his forebears try to conquer the city. Like people don't like Americans in certain places. People don't like Russians because they conquering their town. Like you go to Iraq, the average Iraqi ain't gonna think highly of Americans because they destroyed their city. So this is what it was about. So when the Prophet ﷺ put Bilal's on the Kaaba, who was the grandson of Abraha, this is what the conversation was. How dare he bring this guy? I'm glad my father's not alive to see this. Because those people thought when the birds attacked that army, this is a victory for polytheism. But in reality, it was just setting it up for a complete victory. So Allahu Akbar. So that's a better way to tell a story and tell you race don't even have to play a part in it because it's not about race. The Quran and the Hadith, for the most part, they silent on the issue of race. It's just about justice, emancipation. Those things are in the Quran. Those things are in the Hadith. Whether or not a person's black, Chinese, Puerto Rican, that's stuff we worry about.
Yeah. All right. Well, I feel like I've learned a lot just listening to what you had to say. And I feel like you're obviously part of what you do is you're an Amir, but you're also a teacher and you do teach us, So one of the things that I want to know from you is who in the family has been your greatest teacher and what is something they have taught you that you will never forget?
I mean, I learned from a lot of people. Obviously me and dad had a tight relationship, you know what I'm saying? And I remember we was living in Las Vegas and he had these tapes and he would put them on and they would tell us stories about different stuff. And so one of the tapes was telling the story of Bilal. And I remember I said, Dad, how did he know that the Prophet, how did he know? Like he was a slave. So like in my mind, I was young, but I knew he wasn't kicking it with the Prophet and the Sahaba. Like, okay, I just got through picking cotton. Let me go listen. You know what I'm saying? And so Dad, I might have actually been older when I asked Dad this. I think this is when we was in Pennsylvania. And Dad said to me, I remember the tapes from when we was in Vegas. But when we had this conversation, I might have been in Pennsylvania. And Dad said to me, he came from people who always knew. Know what I'm saying? And so when a brother came named Mustafa Briggs, he came and did a thing called Beyond Bilal. And the part where he talked about Hamama, that was just like he just did one sentence on that. Like his program definitely didn't talk that much about Bilal, but he did say that Hamama was, know what I'm saying,
Daughter
of Abraha. But even when he just said that they came into Mecca as slaves, it all clicked because that's the reality we living in America. Like we came to America as slaves, know what I'm saying? Or at least indentured servants or something, or oppressed, know what I'm saying? For the most part, even if you came here years after slavery was over, you still had to deal with a second-class citizenry. But we had that faith and that belief, and it's really that those people have done more in this country than any other people as far as the freedom struggle. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can't take that away from Black people. Nobody would even try to argue with that. They mentioned few obscure people from history, who we might know them, like Helen Keller. We don't know her as being like an activist and stuff, but she was. But
Yeah.
she ain't got nothing on like Malcolm X or something. You know what I'm saying? Frederick Douglass or Fannie Lou Hamer or Sojourner Truth. So and then growing up with mom, she always had us around like, the movement people when we was young. So I really feel like that just kind of gave me, afforded me like an upbringing that a lot of people they don't get to have, and it's a blessing that I was able to get that. And so I definitely try to use that when I'm as part of my life. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want it to just be, okay, this is something that I was afforded the opportunity to see things and talk to people and hear different ideas and not just walk away from it. You know what I'm saying? But if we've been on for like 2 hours, ain't nobody gonna listen to no 2-hour
Well,
podcast.
this is the last question. Actually, I'm rounding us down. This is the last question. So, and it's gonna build off of what you just said about, sort of like the role that Black people play in our history and in American history and in Muslim history. So what do you think, what do you want everybody to know about what it means to be a Black person in America?
I mean, so I think Black people, and I heard Sheikh Adeyinke Mendez say this. He said that the word Adam, you know what the word Adam in Arabic means?
Oh God, is this like a quiz? You mean like I didn't know.
the word, but why don't we know this though, right? Because the word Adam,
like,
but
Ahad means one.
but the word Adam means black. That's what the word.
Oh, okay.
No, but why we don't know this is Black people? Like, why? What you wouldn't think that if I was an Arab and I came to a bunch of people and they had a predilection for Islam, wouldn't that want to be one of the first things I say? The word Adam and Udma means dark skin in Arabic. Know what I'm saying? And this is how many Sahaba was described. Huwa Adam Shadidul Udma. He was black and extremely dark. Talking about Arabs in the time of Prophet Sallallahu, right? But those words with the names for the prophets have secrets, right? So you take a name, Yusuf means to make somebody sorry. And that was Yusuf's name because when he was taken away, his father went blind because he was so sad that he wasn't around his son. Things like that. So what's the secret with the name Adam and that being the prophet Adam? There ain't no secret to that name. It's just a name. No, obviously it's telling you he was black. Know what I'm saying? His name was black.
Yeah.
Know what I'm saying? So, but Adeyinke Mendez, Sheikh Mendez said he was asked about Black people always having this struggle and always being, oppressed. And he said, well, the Satan was sent out of heaven because of Adam and his wife.
Yeah.
And he was an enemy to Adam and his wife. So throughout history, Satan has always made the two most despised people Blacks and women. You know what I'm saying? And so
wow.
I don't know if that's throughout history, but definitely centuries and centuries and centuries, they keep coming up, the Blacks and women, these movements to keep us down and oppressed, right? If you're a Black woman, it's doubly against you, right? And so that being the case, I would say for Black people, we just gotta learn our history, man. We gotta get books like the Walking Quran. We got to get books like Illuminating the Darkness, The History of the Blacks and the Abyssinians by Sheikh Josie. He wrote that book 800 years ago.
Wow.
In that book, he has a hadith that says Zayd ibn Haritha was Adam Shadidul Udman, right? And this is the person who the prophet raised as a son.
Yes.
So I put a link up when they was talking about, or a post up. I was saying, how could Black lives not matter to Muslims when the most beloved person to the Prophet Muhammad, like people, some people might be like, wait a minute, Ali. Other people might say Abu Bakr. Alhamdulillah. I'm talking about if you adopt somebody as your son,
yes,
and raise that person, and then that person marries your foster mother, and then them two have a baby, can there be anybody outside of your own personal grandchildren that you're going to be closer to? You know what I'm saying? And when this, so Khadija, she had an uncle who lived longer than her and lived longer than the prophet. He lived to be an old man. And he said that before he was Muslim, he went to Rome and he bought a jacket because the Romans was known for having nice jackets, and Medina used to get cold winters. So he gifted the jacket to the prophet in Medina. And then one time he came back and he saw this tall black guy walking down the street with the jacket on.
Yeah.
So he went to the prophet and he was like, who is this black crow? And why is he wearing the jacket that I gave you? And the prophet said, have patience, uncle. His name is Usama, and there's no one in this world who I love more. You know what I'm saying? And so these are the stories about the Black Muslims going all the way back to the time of the prophet, being some of the only. And so, but I put these things up, and some brother who he studied in Mauritania, he told me, well, my Mauritanian shiuk said Zayd wasn't black. So there's a hadith in where people amongst the companions was questioning whether or not Zayd was Usama's father because they didn't look alike, right? So some people use this to say, see, well, Zayd must not have been black because Usama's definitely black because we got this hadith. Even though you have these other hadith, they try to use this to weaken the other hadith that describes Zayd as black with a snub nose and short. But the thing is, from this hadith, the man said, who is this tall crow? And Zayd was known as being short with a stub nose and stocky. So if you got a tall kid, you know what I'm saying? People be like, man, you sure that's your, they used to give him a hard time. You sure that's your son? Not saying that one was black and one wasn't, the other one wasn't. There's no, that what they're trying to do is a proof by negation, right? Because there's no affirmative thing. There's no hadith they're going to find that says Zayd was white or Zayd was light. Or Zayd, you know what I'm saying? So they trying to prove it by negating it, even though they had these other hadiths that say he was. And why it's so important was because he's the only Sahaba that was mentioned by name in the Holy Quran.
Yes.
And he was, you know, to say that this was black man is the Allah only mentioned one Sahaba by name, you know what I'm saying? And the companions of the Prophet, they used to say, had Zayd lived longer than Muhammad, he would have been made the Khalifa by consensus of all of the Muslims. That's how, because whether or not Allah said, don't call them your sons, but that still don't change the love that people have for each other. You know what I'm saying? So, but so this guy, he was trying to argue with me, and I told him, man, this book was written 800 years ago, because he tried to say only people say that they black is racial critical race Muslims or something in America. I said, this book was written in 800 years ago by an Iraqi. Wasn't even the United States when he said that Zayd was black. Why would he have made it up? But what's the purpose? Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I ended up blocking the dude because he told me I'm just gonna come back with my proofs. So I don't know. He called Mauritania. They ain't got no phone. Then he come back talking about, well, the Mauritanian shit you told me. I said, bro, a proof ain't they told you something. A proof is where did they get it from? Know what I'm saying? Like, what's the proof? Like, you know what I'm saying? I just blocked the dude. I was like, dude, people would be like, well, like, why you got a problem with the fact? So if Zayd is black, you not gonna love him?
Yeah.
If the Prophet Muhammad is black, you're not gonna love him. If Jesus is black, you're not gonna love him. Like that shows white supremacy and
Right.
effects. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I forgot the question. Oh, so no, so my thing is Muslims we just gotta learn. We gotta have a colonial understanding of Islamic history and not let these postmodernist so-called Muslim people, teachers, have a final say when a lot of the stuff that they can, like if these people live through certain things that happen in the Muslim world, like the slavery in Africa and stuff like that, then we gotta scrutinize what they say, because it became in vogue for Muslim scholars to invoke the curse of Ham.
Yeah.
Once the slavery thing jumped off in Africa, so that they could sleep at night. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Before that, Muslim scholars weren't talking about the curse of Ham because that's not in the Quran. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
So.
Wow. I learned a lot. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking to you. So I appreciate you for taking the time out to talk to us and to me, and to share your knowledge and experience with us.
Alhamdulillah. We at the Lighthouse, we're doing a couple classes that people wanted. Brother Shariar, he does a Wednesday night class about traits of the righteous, which is a good class. It just talks about the righteous people and different traits that they exhibited and how we could kind of try to have those traits. And then I'm doing a Islamic sermon class, how to give khutbahs on. So his is on Facebook Live from the Lighthouse Facebook page on Wednesdays at 8, and mine's is Thursdays at 7:30.
All right, so will you share the link with me, and I'll put it in the description for this episode when it airs.
All right, that'll work.
All right, I love you.
Love you too.
All right, salam alaikum.
Like my song.